Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Matt and I'm back with another Rail Rambling. And today we're going to talk about model railroading and is it affordable? This is actually going to be kind of a supplemental video to a podcast episode that I did with the Around the Layout podcast. Ray had invited me on to talk about model railroading and affordability and how can you have a great time with model railroading without spending too much money. I feel like I might have been a little all over the place on that podcast. I'm sure Ray's going to edit together well so that I make sense. But looking back on it, reflecting on the recording session, I had a couple more thoughts, and so I figured I would share them in this video. And then encourage everyone to go listen to that episode of Around the Layout podcast if you haven't subscribed already. It's a great podcast. I love the work that Ray's doing over there on that show. And yeah, anyway, so when it comes to affordable model railroading, let's talk about, I'd like to break it down into like two statements. The first statement being that you get what you pay for in model railroading. And then the second statement being that model railroading is about way more than just buying things. Let's talk about the first statement. You get what you pay for in model railroading. I say that because I hear people say, oh, the hobby's too expensive, or it's gotten too expensive, or, back in my day, it was, way cheaper, or whatever it might be. I like to look at it similar to how I look at video games. When I'm looking at a video game, and let's say it's a $60 video game, and I look at the length of the campaign in that game, or how much multiplayer experience there is to have in that game. Let's say there's 60 hours worth of campaign for that game. That means I am spending about $1 an hour in entertainment. And, if it's a game with a shorter campaign, maybe it's got like a 10-hour campaign, that price per hour's worth of entertainment goes up. Or, if it's a game that has a whole lot of multiplayer opportunities there, maybe you're going to get 200, 300 hours worth of video gaming out of that $60. It's going to be a lot more valuable when it comes to the entertainment dollars per hour investment, if that makes sense. And I tend to look at model railroading in the same way. If I'm looking to purchase a car, let's say, and that car is $60, am I going to get a good value entertainment hours per amount of money I spent on that car? And that includes things like weathering the car, detailing the car, operating the car, running around the layout, whatever I might do. Over the lifetime of your model railroad, the lifetime you spend in a hobby, you'll get that back in entertainments per hour, dollars per hour spent. If you comparing it to like video games, right? That's how I look at it. So when you compare the hobby of model railroading to video games, I think model railroading can be a far better value in that way. That's not to say you have to spend $60 on a freight car. A lot of people feel that is just way too much money to spend. And I don't disagree with that at all. Let me show you something real quick. I've made this comparison before, but this is a gondola you can buy for around $20, $25. And this is a gondola you can buy for around $50 to $60. And can you tell the difference between the two? You can't, because this one's a $20 one and this one's a $60 one. Oh man. And I make that point only to say that this is a beautiful car. It's got molded in grab irons. It has a little bit of less detail compared to this one here. But is this one 3 times the value of this one here? Probably not, right? I mean, I'm going to get as much fun and enjoyment out of this one versus this one. I do prefer the looks of this one. I think that this one will be a lot more fun to weather and photograph and everything else that we engage in this hobby. But is it 3 times as enjoyable as this one? Probably not necessarily the case there, right? I make these comparisons only to say that you do not need to spend a lot of money to have a lot of fun in the hobby. As with everything out there, whether it's, playing with trains or buying a home, there's this sense that we have to keep up with the Joneses, right? We see somebody out there with something that's really expensive and cool and we want it for ourselves. And I get it. I get it. I engage in that myself, but don't feel like you need to. You don't need a $300 locomotive to have a really great, beautiful locomotive that operates very well. $150 Walther's mainline locomotive looks fantastic, operates beautifully, and can serve you for many, many years to come. And in my mind, a $20 car, $150 locomotive, that is affordable for the amount of entertainment you're going to get out of something like that. It's not cheap, and you can go cheap in this hobby. You can get a $5, Tyco car off of eBay, and you can get yourself a $50 locomotive from the 1980s, and it runs DC only, and you can build a model railroad around those things, and it will be, overall pretty cheap. Will you get the same level of entertainment and your value per dollar out of something like that? Personally, I don't believe so. Cheap cars, old locomotives, they come with their own problems and headaches. And DCC, although it's a couple $100 more to sort of make that leap from DC to DCC, I think you're getting a lot of entertainment value out of something like that. And if you compare it to a lot of other hobbies out there, like video games or like, going to baseball games or owning a motorcycle or anything like that, a snowmobile, right? Skiing, model railroading is not much different. And new modern equipment and the DCC systems that are available out there, they're all really great. They all run well and can serve you for years to come. So maybe you start out with that $150 locomotive, you start out with those cheaper cars, and as you get a little further along in the hobby, maybe you save up a little bit and you get that nicer locomotive to really be like the centerpiece of your layout. Or you get some nicer cars so you can really weather those up and really make those, show pieces. But don't feel like you got to do that right away. If you buy yourself some nice equipment, it'll be with you for many, many years and you'll get a lot of enjoyment out of it. Which brings us to point number 2, which is this hobby is about way more than just buying things. And I think that is something that I get myself in trouble with a little bit sometimes. And I know certainly anyone who's in this hobby does. And that is we get into like buying mode. And I've talked about this a little bit in the past as well. And as we feel like we need to get everything all at once. I'm going to need 10 locomotives for my layout, so I need to go buy myself 10 locomotives. Or I'm going to need 150 cars for my layout, and we need to buy myself 150 cars. I got this big basement empire in mind, and it's going to take 150 switches and all these, all this flex track. And I just need to get it all. I need to get it all. I need to get it all. Slow down because, like I've said already, this is a hobby that's going to be with you for many, many years. And you don't need to get into just buying everything all at once. This hobby is as much about the research that goes into building your layout as it is buying things for your layout, right? And then the construction of the layout itself is a big, time-consuming, in a good way, process. Enjoy it. Enjoy slowing down. Enjoy taking your time and researching and figuring out, is this the proper car for this industry that I'm looking to model here? How many cars do I really need for my layout? Give yourself the time to slow down, to research what it is that you really want, so that you're only really buying what you want and what you really need. The research aspect of the hobby is one that I've really kind of come to really appreciate and enjoy. And every great model railroad has a lot of research behind it. And, whether that's researching, what cars are appropriate for the era, or just researching, what's the best way to ballast. There's a lot that goes into model railroading, and the learning aspect of it is just as much fun as anything else. Also, you'll be building, and you'll be, building bench work, laying track, laying down scenery, and all that stuff that comes along with that. And that all takes time as well. And so the research and the construction aspect of the hobby really, does take up a lot of that hobby time and becomes a really important and key differentiator a key thing that makes model railroading different from, say, collecting action figures, right? Or something along that lines. You're not just buying something and sticking it on a shelf. You're buying something and you're working with it and you're playing with it and you're researching all about how to use it in a prototypical manner. And so when you're first starting out in the hobby, and at least this was the case for me, there's a lot of like, okay, what is it that I need to buy? What are the things that I need to purchase in order to have fun in model railroading? And you learn pretty quickly that model railroading isn't really about buying things. It's about building things. It's about making something. And yes, that involves buying things, but it also involves research and craftsmanship and a lot of other things that are pretty unique to the hobby when you compare it to most every other hobby out there. And that's what makes model railroading so darn great. Okay, I don't want to ramble, and I know this is going to cut together really, really odd. So I apologize for the crazy edits that's going to happen in this video. This is a weird subject. This is a hard subject for me to sort of wrap my head around and get my words out for some reason. But hopefully, between this and the podcast episode on the Round the Layout podcast, which I will link in the description of this video, hopefully you get something out of all of this. If you have questions or comments, leave those below. I'd love to hear from everyone and hear what your take is on all this. I don't mean to offend anyone with my thoughts or anything like that. Obviously everyone's going to approach this hobby however they wish, and as long as you're getting enjoyment out of it, as long as you're happy, I think you're on the right course. All right, that's it for me today. Thank you everyone for stopping by, and I'll see you all in another video.